What's up, everybody? I'm back again with another video, and today I have an interesting video for a lot of you out there. Many of you have been following me for modern versions of World of Warcraft PvP, retail versions of World of Warcraft Arena, but Classic is quickly approaching, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are interested in dabbling inside of Classic, and specifically for this channel, PvP. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down everything into about 5 tips or 5 differences between retail PvP, retail modern versions of PvP, World of Warcraft PvP, when compared to Classic PvP. For those of you who do not remember, or this is your first time dabbling in Vanilla WoW and you want to know the differences, the changes. Well, they're not changes, but you get what I'm saying. The disparities, or yeah.
That's a bug. No, unless I don't know. That's. Hey, bro, like you're good, Stoops, man. Hey, good job, Stoops. Like, yeah, man, can you let me test my fucking thing, though, you piece of shit?
Now, if there's something that I left out in this video that you think should be known and you're really experienced and you have a lot of info, which is probably true because there's a lot of people out there that have been playing Vanilla WoW for a really long time, you can politely let me know in the comment section below, and you can spread that knowledge if you're willing to do so. And finally, before somebody comments in the comment section below and says the video begins here, I'll put some timestamps in the info box below if you want to skip around, if you're just somebody that has a limited amount of time or just a small, attention span like me. Starting off with number 1, consumables. Consumables are something that you're going to see a lot inside of Classic or Vanilla PvP. Now, number 1, number 2, number 3 are very similar in that sense, and it's going to be seen as gimmicky to a lot of players who've been playing modern versions of World of Warcraft. They're going to say these items are, these things are very gimmicky. This shouldn't be allowed, or this is not very, it's not very code of conduct-esque, or you get what I'm saying. They're going to be seen as just like unfair, but I'll explain that a bit later, and it will make a little bit more sense later on in the video. But consumables are something that you're going to notice because the main source of PvP inside of Vanilla, and it's going to be seen as probably a little bit more competitive when compared to modern versions of World of Warcraft, is dueling in battlegrounds. Now, in retail versions of World of Warcraft or modern versions of World of Warcraft, battlegrounds, just regular general battlegrounds, aren't as competitive when compared to a structured format like ranked or rated battlegrounds and then arena. Dueling in battlegrounds and open world PvP are your main sources of PvP, and when you're in the open world format, when you're open just questing or going after maybe a world boss or something like that, you're gonna see players use whatever they need to use to try and get the advantage. So consumables are going to be one. When it comes to battlegrounds, a very well-known consumable is going to be called the FAP. It's a really ridiculous name, but it's the free action potion. The free action potion is a potion that druid flag carriers would drink or take, and it makes them immune to like stuns and slows, and it's basically a way for them to safely get across the map to try and capture the flag. Now, this is something that you probably won't see in duels. When I was testing or going back in time and playing or dueling in Vanilla WoW, you didn't see a lot of players use free action potions in duels, and if they did, it wasn't seen as very. There's a code of conduct when it comes to dueling, and free action potions or FAPs are not very. They're frowned upon, I should say. But in battlegrounds, it's free game, so things like a free action potion are going to be something that you're going to see players use. You're also going to see things like potions, speed potions, mana pots, health pots, things like that. Now, they are used in, modern versions of BGs, but modern versions of BGs in like Battle for Azeroth, for example, there are consumables that players will use, but players don't take battlegrounds as seriously. I mean, some people do, but when it comes to just competitiveness, there's no ranking system like you'll find in Classic WoW, ranking up to rank 14 through battlegrounds. Players are going to use any consumable that they can to try and get an advantage. Things like first aid and bandages are going to be very necessary for you. I would consider that a consumable or something that you would use. So those are things that you'll be seeing all over the place, and it is considered normal depending on the format of PvP. Moving on to number 2, it's going to be offhand gear and items. Items that don't really fit your class in terms of like level. It might be a level 30 trinket. It might be, some random quest item that you grab, but that's going to be useful for you in duels. And this goes back to my original point when it comes to just why these things are used in the first place. So, in Burning Crusade as a rogue, you have things like Cloak of Shadows, but you don't have Cloak of Shadows as, a rogue at level 60. So there's a lot of holes in your game or your class, your toolkit, when it comes to PvP that other classes can clearly exploit. Now, some players are just garbanzo beans. When I'm dueling on these servers, some players are just awful, and even if my class is not favored in the matchup, I can just run right over them because they're just not very experienced. But some players that are experienced or somewhat experienced in the class can really take advantage of that rock, paper, scissors matchup, and you're gonna need certain items to help you in these duels, because duels are taken somewhat more seriously than they are in retail versions or modern versions of World of Warcraft.
Better block, bro. Yeah, nice block, nice block.
I think this game's over. I don't have any. Yeah, I think you just win.
Yeah! Get the fuck out of there! Pagarecciato! Let's go!
People take duels a lot more seriously in vanilla or classic WoW. It's a way that you stand out. Everyone's on the same server. Everyone knows who you are. And if you want to win these unfavorable matchups, you're going to need specific items. So an example would be, as when playing as a shaman, getting a Skull of Impending Doom to break out of things like a polymorph or even a blind is going to be a way for you to try and swing that matchup in your favor. Your trinket, your gladiator's medallion that you might be, used to calling it in BFA, your insignia, that trinket, your PvP trinket, doesn't break you out of every single CC like it does in retail or modern versions of World of Warcraft. The reason being is that it's class specific. Every class will break out of specific CCs, and as a shaman, you can't just trinket polymorph. And if a mage gets that polymorph on you early on in the duel, from what I've noticed, it's very hard to recover. But if you are able to stop that polymorph through things like Earth Shot, Grounding Totem, and maybe you're using a Tidal Charm to stun the target at a range, and then you have a Skull of Impending Doom, you can force out a lot of CC, or a lot of CDs, I should say, from the mage, and put on a lot of offensive pressure to force the block. And then if he does get the sheep, you're already so far ahead where you have an advantage. So having certain items like a Tidal Charm, having things like the Medicine Pouch to heal you up, having things like a Skull of Impending Doom is going to be necessary. And these items are not items that you would get at level 60. They're quest items that you can grab along the way. You've probably heard of the Tidal Charm by now. Skull of Impending Doom is easy to get as well, around level 40. So you're looking to grab these off-brand items to help you in these 1v1 matchups when they're not so favorable. And you'll see that all over the place in classic WoW. And I think some players really enjoy that playstyle because it allows for a lot of creativity. Moving on to number 3 is going to be engineering. Now, engineering, I mentioned first aid and bandages a little bit earlier in the video, but engineering is in a league of its own. At level 60, having engineering is going to be very important for you. Having these rocket boots are going to be very important for you. Having these grenades, like the thorium grenades, are going to be very important in duels because it adds an extra layer of CC, an extra layer of damage, and you're going to see a lot of players using these all over the place. Having reflector trinkets, if you're playing as a rogue and you're fighting versus a shadow priest, having that shadow reflector trinket, or if you're playing as a warrior fighting against a mage and you need that frost reflector trinket, having those things are going to be very important for you, and you need engineering for that. Some of the things you can just buy just straight out the auction house, but having your own source of engineering I think is very important. However, I personally don't think, from what I've been told, and I've been dabbling a lot in this classic stuff and been talking to a lot of people, you don't want to go straight out and level engineering right out the gate. It's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to take up a lot of time. If you're just trying to level, grabbing professions like maybe mining or even, herbalism or skinning along the way, sending your materials off to a bank as you level, putting them on the auction house, getting some gold is going to be your primary concern. And then at the end or towards end game content, you can begin working on your engineering. But having engineering is almost a must for anybody who's taking PvP seriously. Moving on to number 4 is add-ons. Now, add-ons is definitely something that you see in modern versions of World of Warcraft, but there's a lot of just basic features that you would expect to be in World of Warcraft, vanilla classic World of Warcraft, that are just not there that you're so accustomed to. For example, enemy cast bars. If you don't have an add-on to see what they're casting, it won't be displayed in the in-game interface. You have no idea what they're casting. You have to try and guess by the animation. It's very hard to land interrupts. It's easy to get faked on when it comes to your interrupts, and you don't know if he's casting a heal or if he's casting a Hearthstone, for example, depending on the animation of the character. So having add-ons to display cast bars, having add-ons for timers on your cheap shots. For example, if you're playing as a rogue and you cheap shot somebody, you don't know when it's about to the cheap shot's about to come off or the blind because there's no timer, so you need a timer or you're going to count it out in your head. So having just basic add-ons like that are going to be very important for you, and they're things that you're just accustomed to that have been there for so long that they're not in you know, classic or vanilla WoW, but there's tons of add-ons out there for you to already install. A great resource is willetclassic.com, and that will have a bunch of add-ons that you're, you know, used to having, and it will let you know if you can download them, and there'll be a direct download link there. I'm sure Twitch will enter, you know, the Twitch add-on installer or curse client, maybe as you know it, will be there at some point for classic WoW. And on top of that, Swifty, shout out to Swifty. I'll put his stream somewhere here on the screen. I'm sure you don't even need to know that. You know Swifty is, but Swifty has an amazing add-on link on his page where he has a giant Google Doc where it has tons of add-on links that you would probably want to have, or things that you would think would be implemented in the game and they're not. And I'll put a link to that as well in the info box below so you can get started ahead of time. Now, there's a lot of things that I could have mentioned in this video, but number 5 is going to be my last one because people love 5 things. I don't know, it's a psychology thing, I guess, but number 5 is going to be mana. Mana is something that you will notice immediately, and you'll notice it as you're leveling, and you'll really notice it in PvP. If you thought mana sucked in Battle for Azeroth when it comes to demon hunters and just going as a healer, mana is something that you're gonna notice right away. But I think it does, personally, as somebody who's been, you know, switching between games and playing both types of versions of WoW, I really do think that mana, the way it's done in Burning Crusade and in Classic WoW or Vanilla WoW, is done pretty well. You will very fast. Mana is a resource to you. Mana is very important to you. So having different ranks of spells as a class like a mage or a warlock or a shadow priest or just a shaman, mana is just so weird now in modern versions of WoW, where mana for every class is so important, despite being a healer or a DPS, that you have to monitor this, and it's something that you're gonna notice, and it will hold you back in PvP if you don't know how to manage it well. Now, a quick little bonus one that I'm just gonna add in there. It's like a little just cherry on top. I guess I said 5, but it's 6. I don't know, whatever. Gold. Okay, the last thing I'm gonna talk about is gold in this video. Now, how is gold relative? Well, gold is very important. I'm sure you know this. My little boy Peo, of course, he loves gold. He's like a little cobalt farmer. He loves the gold. But gold is super important in World of Warcraft, and specifically PvP for vanilla, because unlike BFA, gold is not just handed out to you, and you need gold for your professions, which are very important. Having, getting enchants is super important. If you want to level up enchanting, you're going to need gold along the way. If you want to level up engineering, you might need gold. Getting those enchants, like I talked about, are expensive, and you're going to need those to have a competitive edge in PvP, but it keeps the economy alive. It keeps the game alive. I would love to see Blizzard try and fix that when going